Coming up on today's episode.
I think one of the main areas that people don't have much support is design.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just go straight to the draftsman or straight to the architect, and they're just going to go, boom.
Yeah, but you get this.
These are my ideas. This is what I think you should have, without taking into account what the actual owner or the client really needs.
Yeah.
And also a lot of the clients, they walk in, they're like, yep, I want a double-story house, 4 bedrooms. Hang on, we've got a budget. What are we working with? What are our constraints? What areas do we want to live in? Okay, we can't build this sort of thing in this suburb. If you've got X amount of dollars, we're probably looking at more 3-bedroom, not 4-bedroom, for example. We may not be able to look at a pool. Maybe we go to a spa instead.
Dodgy advice and bad decisions can cost you big in real estate. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen. Welcome to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Agresta, and it's time to take control of your property journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your listening how-to guide to the Aussie finance and real estate market. I'm your host, Joe Agresta, and today's episode is for any of our home buyers or investors who are considering building a home but feel totally overwhelmed by where to start, how it works, or how to avoid common traps and horror stories that we've all heard. So, we'll be unpacking the real challenges people face when building, busting myths about design and affordability, and showing you how having the right expert on your side makes all the difference. And to walk us through all of that, I'm joined by someone who's worked across nearly every corner of the property industry. He's been like an agent, house and land, building and construction, and he now runs his own business that offers a genuine one-stop shop. Let's welcome buyer's advocate James Diseris from Lancaster Properties. How are you going, James?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so keen to get into this because we've caught up a few times and I feel like we're more friends now than we probably ever were.
I feel like we're related.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is my long lost cousin. We're going to interview him and I'm not going to roast him. But
good.
No, I'm really excited to have you because, I reflect on my journey a lot through building. So I've built property, and when, you started to describe what you do and I started to look at your website, I'm like, far out, where was this solution when I was building my house? This was an absolute nightmare that I went through. So I'm very excited to have you here because a lot of our listeners are talking about this topic of building property, especially since COVID. I think we had a lot of a boom in the COVID period with building properties and, developments. And then now people are starting to kind of shift back into that market and explore, okay, well, what options do I have and who can help? And that's why you're a key person in this part that we need to talk to. I want to start by getting to know your journey a little bit more, because I know you've done a bit of everything in the industry, which, I want you to give us a bit of an intro into your background. So how you got into real estate, what areas you worked across, and how it shaped your path to starting Lancaster Properties.
Well, funnily enough, I studied technology. I had to go to university, like a lot of immigrants' children. You have to go to university. Although I wanted to start a small business when I was 15, but my father didn't let me. My father had a construction business. He came here late 60s. He started off as a carpenter, and then he slowly evolved into being his own a builder and doing custom builds. I found myself in holidays, during my school holidays, even ripe old age of 9 or 10, on a building site, helping him put up frames. So I'm not a tradesperson. If you look at my hands, I've got the hands of a surgeon. And so, so that's how it sort of all started. Unfortunately, what happens when you get into this sort of industry, whether it be property development or construction, it's in your blood and it becomes an addiction.
It does. It never leaves you. When you touch property, especially at a young age, it's like, oh no, that's it. That's all I have to do with my life.
No, it doesn't. Like if there's an auction or if there's a new house being built, I want to have a sneaky peek. I want to see what's going on. What are they building? And I think it's not in a bad way. You just want to see, what are they doing? Oh, this is beautiful. What are they going to be? What is it going to turn out like?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went from there. I worked in technology. I got into the corporate world, worked at one of the large banks, various roles. I got made redundant, and then I just didn't want to go back to an office. And I started a construction business.
Oh my gosh, full circle with your dad, right?
And it was funny because Dad said to me when I finished university, he goes, "Go get your building license." I'm like, "What do I need a building license for? We're gonna need to build a house at some point."
Yeah, because that's right. We can't ask for help when you're Europeans.
No, so he goes, "You need to build a house." Okay, fine. So I went and got a building license. I've still got that building license, that building registration.
Nice.
I got that well over 20 years ago now, I think. So I went from there, and then because I wasn't a tradesperson, I didn't really want to stick into the construction side of things.
Yeah.
I wanted to see how I can help people. So the whole buyers advocacy space was starting to fester up, and I'm like, it might be a good opportunity. And how can I be different to how can I help people in this space? Because you have people who, okay, we can find houses, but how do we know that they're good houses? Or what options do we have? How can we actually create a solution? I'm a very solution sort of person. Okay, this, we haven't got 4 bedrooms here, but it's 3. Can we do 4? How can we create a solution for our clients?
I think that, given your background, and that's what always stood out to me when we started catching up early days, was the fact that you've created something that loops everything together, especially around that building kind of side. And given your expertise, it makes sense because you've worked with so many of these, different professions in that space. So it kind of leads me into, I guess you kind of described a few things about how you came here, but what was that moment of frustration for you that made you think, stuff this, I'm building something better?
I just did a lot of market research. I had to look around what other services were out there. There is one service which is one other company which is very, very similar to what I do and my level of expertise. I'm not going to mention that name, but they do very, very similar things. So I got frustrated because I could see this type of things that were getting done. I could see that the people who were finding homes weren't finding the right home.
Yeah, that's a big problem
for the people. And coming from a technology background and projects background, I have my theory and what I was taught in my corporate world was, horrible requirements in, horrible product out.
Oh, I like that. That's actually really interesting, the way you put that. So talk to me a little bit more about that. So how do you kind of have that methodology in your business? So how did you set the scene?
Well, it's all about getting the requirements and what are the must-haves that a client needs. What do we need? How many bedrooms? What area do we need? Do we have children? Do we not have children? Is it just one person? Is it a rental? What market are we going for? And that's on the investor side. So I also believe that, when we're doing in property development, for example, I don't call it property development. I call it product development.
Interesting.
Who is your market? Who are you marketing to? You're buying an investment property. Who do you want to market to? Who needs that investment property now?
That's I really like that way of looking at it, especially if I put my investor hat on, right? So I'm an investor. It makes sense to think of it like that. It is a product because at the end of it all, you're building that, that home with the hope of, yes, of course, rental yield or capital gains or whatever your motivation is. But getting the right tenant in there is equally important. If you build, a 1-bedroom home in the country, you're probably not going to get many people that jump into it. But build a 3-bedroom home, maybe with 2 bathrooms, maybe with a decent land size, then you're appealing to that bigger market where it's like, okay, you're going to get a family here or maybe a young couple with a pet or dog.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that makes sense. And I want to bring in a bit of my own experience here for our audience to kind of, because I've talked about this on the podcast before, but because you're here, I think you can actually help, realise this for a lot of people out there, because even as someone who, my background in real estate and, being an ex-real estate agent and buyer's advocate, when I went through the building journey, I've got to say my own home was probably one of the most frustrating builds that I've ever done with my partner. So when what started off as a 6-month build ended up into a 2-year headache. So we were waiting, a lot of delays, a lot of issues. And honestly, I had no idea where to go when things got delayed. Was it the display agent? Was it the builder? it was a finger pointing circus. It was like I'd go to the builder and go, what happened here? They're like, no, you didn't pay for engineering. Go back to the agent. The agent goes, no, you paid for the engineering, but the engineer didn't do it. And I said, okay, who do I talk to here? So like, that's why your business model really stood out to me, to be honest, because when I thought about that time, you've built that one-stop shop that helps clients navigate the whole thing, not just finding land or choosing a builder, but managing the whole journey. Can you talk us through what Lancaster Properties actually does and how you're set up to support clients from day one? Like if you had to think of someone in my scenario.
Okay, so what we do is, first things first, like I mentioned before, the requirements of the client. What are your requirements? What we also delve into, what are your future plans?
Yeah.
And we also need to sprinkle it up a little bit with, you also need to build it for the next person who's going to purchase a property as well. So take into effect, hang on, if we need to sell 5-10 years time, are we going to get our money back? Are we going to appeal to the market as well?
And that's super important. I think that what are you going to do, that planning phase? And this is where your advocate, your buyer's advocacy side really shines through, because that's very typical, similar to a standard buyer's agent. If the product is an established property, they would go through your goals and your journey. So that's where you kind of set the scene with your customers as well. You bring in the advocacy expertise that you have and say, right, why are we doing this and what are we doing?
Yes, exactly. The why is very important. And then we start piecing together the puzzle.
Yeah.
You call it a puzzle. Sometimes I call it a canvas. People go to me, oh, what do you do? I go, well, I provide you the canvas for your life, because we give you the canvas. How big does your canvas need to be? What shape does it need to be? Where are we going to hang this canvas once we've painted it?
I like that.
So that's the way I sort of look at it. So if you're coming to me as a client, I would say, okay, as I said, we'll go through the requirements, then we'll start assessing, we'll start putting it together, working out what is your budget. Are we going to go, do we hire someone? Do we go like a person who to a builder that does more house and land? Do you do a custom build? If we do a custom build, what sort of designers do we need? Are we going to get an architect who's going to do this beautiful building? Now, or do we go for a drafts person?
Yeah,
does a bit less detail. The most important thing to realize here, when you're building, whether it be software or whether you're building a home or townhouses, whatever you're doing, is that we need detail. You don't want to give the builder too many questions to ask or too many items where, oh, hang on, you know what? I've got an opportunity here to get a variation.
Yeah, I got you.
So, if you hire a decent designer, they will have that detail on there. We will then put the specs together of what we're going to put in there with, tile, carpets, whatever we put in there.
Oh, wow. So that's already like you've gone through.
We'll do that.
Yeah, the whole process so far is with you being totally guided.
So we'll do that, and we'll work through with the architect or the designer. We want to get this as watertight as we can, and then we present it to a builder who specializes in it. If you're doing a big monstrosity of a house, a McMansion that's 56 squares, who are the builders that we deal with in that space? Who are the townhouse builders? Who are the those sort of people? We need to understand who are the most suited to.
So it sounds really tailor-made, instead of, because I'm comparing the experience to going directly to a builder, right? So you walk in the door of like a Porter Davis or like a Metricon, comparing that difference, you kind of don't get that experience where someone asks you all those questions. It feels very much like you should buy this already pre-made, plan and design, put that on a piece of land, but find the land and come back to me when you got land, if they haven't packaged it. And that's, I think, where our process was very messy. And for a lot of our listeners who write into the show, share a very similar experience. And for your side of the business, what I'm hearing is that instead of you being the buyer who has to go out and do this yourself and think about it and fumble through it, you're taking the lead and taking them through it.
And I think the clients need to have some guidance. I mean, if I give you a whole catalogue of colours to choose from, how long is it going to take you to choose a colour? Oh,
we spent 4 hours at our colour selection.
And that's not long.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That's not long. People go, they like, oh, what colour are we going to paint the wall? Do we do it blue? Do we do it white? What sort of white?
No, the question that killed me at our colour selection was when they asked me which way I wanted the grain of the wood to go on our cabinets. And I said, I've never thought about this question in my life. And now that I'm faced with the decision, I'm like, oh God, I don't know. Do we do it that way? Do we do it that way? There's so much.
There is. And you know what? And There's also a lot of new materials and things that have come out,
Yeah.
which are very, very, like some nice materials and some nice designs that have come out. So
No, and look, I love, like I said, I love it because your model is a full service approach. So you've got buyer's agents, yourself and architects, project managers, builders all working together. And, it's very clear that, I guess, I'd like to ask you, why did you choose to build it that way?
because they're my strengths. So, like they're my strengths. I wanted to use my what I can say, my strength for good, not evil.
It's like we're
Not
talking
the
to a
builders
superhero.
or agents are evil. I wanted to use my strengths for good, not evil.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah.
And, this is something that I like to do on every episode. I like to do a bit of myth busting.
Myth busting.
All right. What, when we get, our listeners submit questions to the show, we've also got Reddit threads that we look through just to see what buyers are kind of facing in today's market and where they're struggling. And instead of, just assuming some scenarios, I'll give you some real world context of what these comments are. And I'd like you to bust the myths for me and give me your approach.
All right.
You can get started?
Sure. Is there something in the middle of busting, like in the middle? No.
Yeah. What would you call it? It's kind of like you're not busting the myth. You're opening up a Pandora's box of issues.
Okay. All right, I'll do my best.
No, you'll be right. You know all the answers, I'm sure.
Sure.
So I'm going to throw them your way and get your no BS take on them.
Okay.
So this comes from one of our listeners. Building always takes longer than they say, right? Why does this happen and how do you help prevent timeline blowouts?
Okay, so as I mentioned before, the requirements are important. The level of detail on those documents are important. So the tighter they are, the less questions a builder has to ask. So the construction should run a lot more smoother than it normally would.
That makes sense. So you're kind of because you do the communicating then with the builder for the requirements, because you're acting as a little bit of a rep for the customer or for the client. Is that right?
Yeah. I'll represent the owner, the customer. But I'll speak to the builder language.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a whole different language.
Oh, yeah, no, that's full of jargon. We're not going to do that to you guys.
No, you should hear what they do at the VBA now. How to test people whether they are legitimately got experience in building.
Really? That actually put a little...
I know someone that told me that for a fact.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know what? It kind of makes me feel a little bit better that they are pressure testing the right professionals, because, it means that they want to know are you the qualified person to speak about this matter or not? And if you're someone who throws a term out and you can't answer it, then I'd be concerned.
How important it is, like the person who's putting this house together for you, you may have yourself and your family living in there. They're not doctors, but, it's got to be safe. It's got to be secure, structurally, it's got to tick all the boxes. It's very important.
Oh, 100%. And I can't agree more. And I like this next one. So this came from Reddit. I can't afford to custom build. That's only for people with big budgets. What would you say to someone who thinks custom design is out of reach?
I don't think custom design is out of reach. You may need to reassess your requirements. There could be things around engineering that you could look at, which you could redesign that perhaps would make it more economical.
Right. So it's not like that you can't custom design, but maybe if you've got a plethora of, requirements, that's where the budget can seem impossible to get that design done. But it doesn't mean that you can't build something humble with all the design requirements you want.
Correct. Yes, that's what I think. And the other, so if you look at that, plus some, I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I've got another one that says, we bought titled land so the build could start straight away, but nothing happened for months. Can you give us a behind the scenes look? What's really going on in situations like that?
I believe it would be the two main people responsible there would obviously be the builder and the council.
Ah, okay, interesting. So,
and the building surveyor, they've obviously got to obtain the building permit so you can start construction. But it could be the builder. Maybe they've got limited resources to start the project.
Right.
Or it could be the council, because they've obviously got to approve everything.
Yeah, for sure. So that's interesting. Those people have to work together. So when there's a delay, it's most likely not held up because of just the builder. It could be council, could be the builder, could be the surveyor, all together. How do you kind of, like in your role, at Lancaster Properties, how do you kind of help people avoid that potential pitfall?
Look, if it's to do with council, it could be a documentation thing,
Right.
where they're like, okay, we haven't got certain permits, or we have certain design aspects we need to adhere to. So we have a look at that. We make sure that that the designs and the permits, all those items have been ticked off. Having said that, also, the building surveyor, who is hired by yourself, not the builder in Victoria, that is, they work for you. So they also have an obligation to chase things up.
Okay. That this is what I like about, your answer, because you're still guiding, you're setting up the realistic expectations from the beginning, and you kind of know already where it could be going wrong. Whereas in I think probably in this person's case, they've gone through a, commercial builder or someone that has like that kind of cookie cutter approach. Not saying that that's a bad approach, but this is the benefit of having someone like yourself.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, people go to me, what do you do? And I try and mitigate risk.
Yeah.
We need to be mitigating risk.
Super important, and so undervalued, I think, until the risk appears, and that's when you go, thank God, thank you, James.
Let me cop the punches for you. Everyone, you won't feel a thing.
Yeah, it's like James just comes back black and blue, you're bleeding, and you're like, no, I got it done.
I'll meet up with him one day and I'll have a black eye.
It's like, I got the job done though, you're right, mate. This next one is from another Redditor that says, the builder stopped responding halfway through the build. We're stuck mid-build and don't know who to call. I want to know from your part of Lancaster, like, how do you structure communication so clients aren't left chasing people down in these situations?
Okay, so there's two people that will chase them. That would be me, if I was to be hired as the person to oversee the project. And the second would be the building surveyor, because they have to uphold the building permit and the contract. So they need to make sure that all that's been ticked off. So if it's not, then they will chase the builder and the builder will respond to them.
Yeah, right. And that goes back to that risk mitigation part. You've probably identified that as a risk earlier, and you already have the right people getting involved straight away.
And can I just say that do not let your builder appoint as a building surveyor. They are not allowed to.
Okay. So they can't actually choose it.
They may recommend someone, but you appoint the building surveyor because the building surveyor works for you.
Right. So it's like an independent party in a sense from who the builder provides if they were to go down that path.
That's right.
So with the, I'll just quickly segue there. So with the building surveyor, what is their core responsibility? Is it to oversee the project from a different lens to someone like yourself? So you like the project manager in the kind of...
Yeah, so I'd be effectively like a project manager or development manager. The building surveyor oversees, it will make sure that all the building permit items are being ticked off and that according to the building laws that the home is built to it. But there's a couple of others that they're like, well, sorry, but this is what the rules are.
Yeah, right.
That is what a good building surveyor, good building inspector would say.
Right, and that's who's like, you've got so many people, it sounds like, involved to support your client. It's like there's fail safes everywhere in a sense.
Yes.
No, definitely. I like that. And one of the last ones here, it says, this one came from a Facebook group, and it says, I heard you can't trust the site supervisors or reps. They just want the sale. What level of accountability does your team have throughout the process? Like, or what do you say to that, I guess?
Well, we work for the client.
Yeah, so
our obligation is to make sure that you get into your home, that you get your keys, that it is built in a certain level of quality, and that the builders are helped accountable.
Yeah, nice. And that makes sense, because if you're there to support that whole way and have those tough conversations, like you said, cop all the punches, they're going to get all that support.
Yeah, definitely.
And, thank you for busting myths with me. I really like that segment because it's raw, right? It comes from the real people that either tune in or we, see what their comments are, their real concerns. So for those listening, thanks for submitting those questions, and thank you to those who allowed us to share your comments from those groups, because hopefully this answered your questions about what to expect next. So if you want to talk to someone like James too, feel free to just reach out and say, hey, is this normal and how can you help me?
Yeah, thank you. That was great.
Of course. And I want to go into, like, we've talked a bit about the client journey, and, let's break it down even further, like to how it actually works, right? Because there's two, like you said at the start, I want to make this distinguishment because our listeners are both investors and owner occupiers, right? Mm-hmm. They're either building to live in or they're investing as their first time investment, something down those lines. So I want to try and see, how do you approach those two mindsets differently at that first discovery call? So the very first part of the journey is obviously understanding their why and their motivation, and like you said, building the product. So what do you find the biggest difference in approach when it comes to dealing with an owner-occupier and dealing with investors? Is there a difference?
Yeah, there is. The owner-occupier is very, very personal. It's a very, very personal journey because they're going to be living in there on their own or with a family. It's a very, very personal journey.
Yeah.
The investor, they're looking more about feasibility.
Yeah, right.
Is this feasible? Are we going to make a return? What things do we need to look at to make a return? You know, there's things that a lot of first-time developers do not look at around taxation, for example.
Oh yeah, that's very true actually.
Like, what happens when you flip a site, when you flip a couple of new townhouses? What are the tax implications? I'm not an accountant to fully discuss that, but if you're looking at things around GST, that takes a fair bit of your margin away from a resale.
Yeah, right. I think this is interesting because do you find that, you know, there's certain, I don't even know what the right term isn't exactly, but like, let's say I'm a first home buyer and I've also got an investor, right? So you're talking to these two groups. Do you find that there's similarities in what they want to build because they're kind of targeting a similar audience or target audience, or not really? Because the owner occupier, I imagine, is building a house for themselves to live in. If they're a young couple or a family, that's going to be very tailor-made. On the other side, do you find that the product ends up being similar for an investor because they're trying to attract the couple that can't afford to necessarily buy, but they want to rent? I
think I find the investors more looking at the dollar number, the dollars behind it.
Right.
They will cut back on things. They may not get a certain bench top.
Yeah, true.
Which may cost $15,000, for example, to put in a kitchen. You know, they may go for laminate bench top, which would be slightly more budget conscious. But so that will the tenant look at that?
Yeah.
You have to look at the market that's around there.
Yeah, gotcha.
You're looking at, like, there was a development that was next door to a development that we did, and the developer just put up 3 townhouses, and he put it, and so it was. I mean, it was a good spot. It was a busy area next to a shopping centre, but when I spoke to the real estate agent, they said, "What do you think this will get?" And I said, "Well, let me have a look around." I had a look around. I go, "Did the developer take into account the type of people that live in this area?" Now, going back to what you were saying about the owner or investor, I mean, this probably falls into this spot. They didn't take into account the fact that the majority of the people living in the area were 60, 65 plus.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What 60, 65-year-old want to go up and downstairs?
Yeah, no, none.
I said, well, then they go, "Where's the bedroom downstairs?" And they said, "Oh, but we've got a double garage." I go, "Well, I'm pretty sure that retired people don't have 2 cars.
Yeah, that's true.
They much prefer to have the bedroom downstairs instead of a double garage."
It's so interesting, like the psychology behind it. Like, you can tell you really know what you've done this for a very long time. You can tell it's not just about dollars and cents making sense for an investor or owner-occ, but the fact that you think about those things, I think, is really impressive. Good on you, because town planning is a huge one, right? If they get that wrong, it's like, why would you put? I'm just imagining all this, like even the commercial retail shops, if they've got the wrong ones in that area that they're developing, and then the demographic is actually 60 to 65-year-olds moving in, it's not going to really make sense.
No, like I said, it's product development. Who's your market? Who are we going for? Who are we going to live? Who's going to live here?
No, I love this. So it leads me into my next question. Can you walk us through the process with you from start, like from the very, very beginning, all the way to so from initial consult all the way to settlement and like getting the keys, like handover?
Okay. So what we have the initial consultation, and we do an analysis of what our clients' needs are, their requirements, and from there we then assign our design group.
Right.
And our design group, it will consist of people like architects or draftspeople. Before that, obviously, we need to make sure we have financing.
Yes, of
yes,
course.
We need the money.
Yeah, it's
to
like
build.
You can't do anything without it.
Right? So provided we have financing ticked off. And if we don't, then we've obviously got brokers that we can refer clients to.
Of course.
So we get our design specs together, and we get all that ticked off. Make sure that those designs marry off with the client's requirements.
Yeah.
Both the detail and high level requirements. And then from there, we tender it out to our builders panel. We have builders that we deal with to provide some pricing.
Yep.
And then from there, we assign we recommend or advise of the building surveyor. We go through the whole building permit process, which will then follow on. If it's a single home, it just goes straight through the council.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the architect will then, or the architect or designer will then submit that to council.
Right. Yeah.
And then get approval, town planning approval. Then we get our working drawings, and then we start
the development.
All
right. That's, for someone who started saying, oh, crap, this is a long process, you've put that so neatly and so nicely. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in between that you do, to keep things moving along. But that sounds, I think to me, that reassurance of knowing you're there to guide that journey would be everything.
Yeah, and we try, like I said, it's all about mitigating risk and making sure there are no blockages.
Yeah, on that.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. And, what are some of the key stages where people usually feel lost or maybe a bit unsupported, like not necessarily with you, but how do you guide them through like those points where it's a bit of the hard road where, development maybe has to stop, or like if there's issues that come across the build? Do you ever come across things like that? And if you do, how do you support buyers through that journey?
I think the first one of the main areas that people don't have much support is design.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just go straight to the draftsman or straight to the architect, and they're just going to go boom.
Yeah, but you get this.
These are my ideas. This is what I think you should have, without taking into account what the actual owner or the client really needs.
Yeah.
And also a lot of the clients, they walk in, they're like, yep, I want a double-story house, 4 bedrooms. Hang on, we've got a budget. What are we working with? What are our constraints? What areas do we want to live in? Okay, we can't build this sort of thing in this suburb. If you've got X amount of dollars, we're probably looking at more 3-bedroom, not 4-bedroom, for example. We may not be able to look at a pool.
Makes sense.
Maybe we go to a spa instead.
It's like you're kind of keeping, I think for owner occs, that would probably be the main audience that would probably face those kinds of challenges, because it's head and heart, right? Whereas the investor's more like head. You probably almost have to convince an investor to go do something nicer than laminate.
Yes, exactly.
Don't be too tight.
That's right. And then I guess through the building process, there's a lot of instances where builders try and find areas. Oh, hang on, a variation here. We make extra dollars here.
Okay. So then that's where, is that kind of like where they say, these lights would need to go here instead? That's part of XYZ. And you go, oh, okay, I'll do those lights. And then all of a sudden, I didn't need to do that. Why did I do that?
Yeah. Something like that.
That's
along those lines, definitely.
So that's awesome though, because you're there to be that person that knows the lingo, knows the way they operate, and can keep that stuff like that risk almost to a minimum.
That's what we try. That's what we try to do, because we try and make the process as smooth as possible. There will be arguments. There always is, and with big projects, especially emotionally driven projects, and we try to minimize the amount of times that there's any conflict. And if there's any conflict with the builder or people on site, then because I've had experience dealing with a lot of these people, I know how to eliminate hopefully some of their concerns as well.
No, that's awesome. It sounds like you're quite hands-on, when it comes to looking after the client, or your team is hands-on. They're always going to have support. It's not like they're going to be left to kind of go on, oh, what do I do, James? It's like, I don't know, figure it out. See you later.
Yeah, that's right. No, we don't do that.
No.
That's what we're there for. That's our job.
That's awesome. I really admire that, because I think a lot of the listeners that I've spoken to, when they phone in or they leave an email and they tell us their story, I'm like, oh, far out. Like, they just needed someone to guide them through that journey and be that support, because I think I say this a lot on the show, like there's a culture that we've been raised with that you should know how to buy a house. You want to buy a house? You want to build a house? Just do it. And then we don't think to engage a professional. But what I've noticed in the last few years, especially since 2021, 5% of the market's now buying with a buyer's agent or using an advocate or some sort of buying support, versus in 2021, 1% of the market did that. So this need for guidance, this need and education in the space to have a professional do it with you makes a massive difference. Because like I said, I knew the industry with real estate, but building my house house couldn't prepare me for what I went through.
It tests your relationship with your partner. It tests your relationship.
We moved in with our parents for a year. We thought this was going to be like a 6-month problem. And when it blew out, we were so over it. We just wanted to live together because, we wanted to save money while the build was happening. And I'm just like, see, if I had someone like yourself or, Lancaster Properties guiding me on that journey and looking after those tough conversations that I had to have, I had to get my uncle in. He was my my MVP, the Italian uncle that comes in and goes, "Nah, mate, we're not doing that."
You know what? And this, I think when you asked me before the question about when did it tick off that I wanted to do this and wanted to structure my business this way, this should be a really like cool experience. It should be like one of the best things you could have in life, right?
Yeah.
To build your home or to purchase a property, it should be a really good experience.
Yeah.
It should be one of the things, you know what, I made this is a big, massive milestone in my life. You should not think back and think, it was a pain.
Yep.
I hated it. I'm not doing it again.
And you know what, like I love that as your motivation because it should be. It's such an exciting, like whether you're a first-time investor or you're an owner-occupier. Owner-occupier has a lot of emotion behind it because you're going to live in it, right? Especially that first home or that upgrade home. Like these are stages of our lives when we buy property because your first home's always your starter home.
That's
then you
right.
might have a few kids. You need a bigger home. You upgrade. Your kids move out or, you don't want to upgrade again. You then start to look at downsizing later down the track. So these are the milestones of your life.
Yeah.
And it's a really big deal. And I love that your motivation behind that should be fun. You should look back and go, I almost just want to do it again for the sake of it.
Yeah, and for us, as buyers advocates, it is honestly a privilege to help clients try to find their home.
And it stands out that you're passionate about it, and that's exactly why we got along from day one because I feel the same. This has been incredibly helpful, James, and honestly a bit therapeutic for me. But before we wrap, I just want to ask, what's one big piece of advice you'd give someone who's about to sign maybe a building contract or they've just started their building journey?
I would get your building contract reviewed by a lawyer.
Nice. So not a conveyancer, property lawyer.
A property lawyer, because these contracts by HIA or master builders, they're not designed really that much to help clients. They're okay to protect you, but they're very loose, in my view.
Like getting that review, because so much came out of it with the lawyer. Worth every dollar that I paid. It wasn't even that much. It was a couple of grand for peace of mind. Saved us a lot of money down the track, I think.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, it costs you a couple of $1,000s to get that reviewed. Your insurance policy is $1,000 to $2,000 a year, possibly around there.
Yeah.
For 1 year.
Oh, yeah, true.
It is probably one of the best insurance policies.
Love it. James, thank you so much for being on the show today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and you've given our listeners such a clear and practical, honest view of what building should look like. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I'm so glad. Well, for our listeners, if you're thinking about building, investing, or you just want to understand how to avoid the common traps, reaching out to someone like James could honestly save you time, money, and a whole lot of stress. You can find all the details for Lancaster Properties in the episode description. Reach out to James directly. A consultation will cost you nothing. It's a chat, and it's probably the best way to get set up on the right foot from the very beginning and explore how his team can help support you and your build or investment journey. You've been listening to the No BS Real Estate Podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to subscribe, share this episode with anyone you know who's considering building or buying. Catch you next time. That's a wrap for this episode of the No BS Real Estate Podcast, powered by Abodey AI. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. If you're looking for more guidance on your home buying journey, you can visit www.abodey.com.au for expert advice, property insights, and the tools you need to find the right home with confidence. If you're already on your journey, you can also download our app. Just search Abodey AI on the App Store or Google Play. Have any questions or want to connect, you can follow us on Instagram at abodey.com.au or send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.